All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about cyber incident management preparation framework. So what I'm really trying to get you to think about is to think about what you need to do to prepare for a cyber incident. And if we get the next slide. Right, so what we need to do to prepare for cyber incident, because you know, I'm a keen train spotter for business continuity and crisis management and cyber and all those sort of things. And what you see is the same mistakes from big organizations happening again and again and again. And you know, it's a bit depressing, and it's a bit depressing for large organizations that really have got money, time, and effort, maybe employing people to do something on this, that they haven't sorted this out. And one of the things I'm following at the moment is SEPO, which is the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency. I'm following their cyber incident, which happened on the Christmas Eve. And again, you're just seeing typically the same mistakes that other people like Equifax and Travelex and Marriott and all those other big Garmin, all those other big organizations, we see the same mistakes they're making. So this is a little bit of a plea to all of you, is to kind of say, well, look, come onto this webinar, hopefully hear what we've got to say. We'd love to do a gap analysis for you, but you know, that's not really the important thing, is to come onto this and actually do some of the things and do the preparation, because most of this is not very complicated. But you know, like the old, you know, why we do business continuity is because we do the work now, which makes it easier to respond on the day. So we go next slide. Right, and I just put up this slide as everyone is vulnerable. That bear is the koozie bear on the left, and he's meant to be the Russians, or alleged the Russians. And this is, I won't go into the details of this hack, but basically you can see on the right side that 18,000 customers affected, and you can see who's affected there. They reckon, I was listening to a webinar yesterday, which reckon there's only about 250 of those 18,000 actually had their information affected. But those organizations are scrambling around at the moment, trying to work out what Cozy Bear had and what they had access to. And it's very easy. It's very difficult to say what didn't they get, because how do you prove they didn't get access to this? And this was a very sophisticated hack. And I put that Immersive Labs up there to the right, because actually, if you're looking for a good webinar or a good resources or blogs, they do some really good stuff, and I really enjoy it. And I'm not a technical person at all, so I was listening to their, and they were really impressed with how these guys actually did the hack. But I think my point is to say, if these guys can be hacked, then anybody can be hacked. You know, they've got all the top professionals, they had all the security, and they all the fancy endpoint and detection and all those kind of things, and they can be hacked. So, you know, if you look at your own organization and maybe your IT is a little bit ramshackle, or you know, you don't, or if you're an IT person, nobody gives you enough money to invest in it, then you know, everybody is vulnerable. So if we go with the premise that it could happen to you, it could even be happening to you at this very second, and you don't know it. So everyone's invulnerable. If we go on to the next one. I think there is changing perceptions of of cybersecurity. If you talk to anybody, apart from those sort of very much in the know in the cybersecurity world, if you say cybersecurity and hacking, they always go talk. That's the one we all remember. That is the kind of poster child for for hacking. And the first one, perhaps, that was kind of on TV, that's the Newsnight article with Dido Harding there. And, you know, that's the kind of one people all talk about, and that was like 5 years ago. If we go to the right there, the point is now that just because you're hacked doesn't mean it's a black mark against you. It is more about how you react and how you respond. And there are some, you know, there's some really good examples of Hydro, which is an aluminium smelter from Norway, is always held out as a brilliant way of how they responded to their hack. And one of the things they did was, at the very beginning, they say categorically, we are not going to pay a ransom. And it's because we're not paying a ransom because it's against our company values. Now that cost them probably cost them about 60 million pounds or dollars. So it cost them a lot of money, but they were categorically saying, we are not going to pay. Fine, it was their decision, but they were very, very open and honest, and they came out of that with, you know, their reputation enhanced. So what I'm saying here is, let's just not say that all the focus is on the technical stuff prevented happening. We need to be looking at the bit we're talking about today is the non-technical bit and how we respond. And this bit in the middle is something I've just put together, is to say there is a technical issue. Number 4, there is the IT technical response and recovery, which is extremely important, is what your technical people are going to be doing in response to an incident. But there are 3 other points you have to do. You have to do continuity of operations and business recovery. So you need to use your business continuity plans, and you need to say, if the attack has affected your operations, then you need to manage their recovery. And it's sometimes almost like it's the same as a business continuity incident. If your factory burns down, or if your factory's ransomware and all your machinery, you can't access it because the fact is that it's all electronic controlled and someone's got into your electronic controls. That's what happened to Hydro. Their electronic aluminium smelters got taken over, and they had to bring the old boys back in who could actually work machines manually, because their kind of newer staff didn't know how to do it. So one of the things about cyber, it's about classic business continuity. How do you keep your operations going in a disaster? There is also the whole reputation of stakeholder management. Now, if you're very lucky, you lose very little data, but on most cyber attacks, you're liable to use data, so you have to go and inform your customers, your suppliers, your stakeholders that you have lost their data. That is now a case of reputational management. And because you have to report it to the Information Commissioner, it is not, you can't get away with eyes like Equifax in America of not telling anyone to 52 days until they got themselves sorted. We can't do that. So you have very limited time. And so you're into classic, again, reputational management. How do you manage that reputation? How do you manage your communications with stakeholders? And as we come on to, there are lots of ways not how to do it. There's some good or some bad examples out there. And last of all, do you understand your statutory reporting, including your GDPR requirements? And if you're a multinational or you work in many different jurisdictions, then you have to think through how you're going to manage each of those different jurisdictions, and how you make sure you're not breaking the law. In the fact is that actually all of them have different reporting requirements, different numbers of which is the threshold for reporting, different time frames, and it can be immensely complicated, but you're breaking the law in some cases if you don't report correctly. So sort of my plea to you is to say, anyone who says cyber incident management is a technical issue, Of course it is, but there's an awful lot of it is a non-technical issue, and that's hopefully why you've come on today, because you've agreed that, or you've recognized that. So let's next slide. Right, so what we're going to do is I'm not going to go through everything, but I'm just going to touch on some of the areas I think you need to be looking at. A, if you're going to do it yourself, or B, you can get someone like ourselves to come in and have a look at it. So what you need to do is have a look at your risks, technical response. So how good is your IT preparation for doing this? We're going to look at your classic crisis and incident management, communications. Well, you can read third parties, training and exercise. So that's our kind of little bit of an agenda today. And what I want to talk you through some of the sort of aspects you ought to be considering at each of these. So if we move on to the next one. The first thing you need to do is if you've been cyber attacked, and you know the double extortion, which you can see top right there, that have to govern Shires, Mills, Mass, and Sachs. So basically, they were ransomware attacked. They'd also had their data stolen, and they were the ransomware guys asked them to pay to get their files unlocked. They also stole a whole load of because they're entertainment lawyers, they had a whole load of contracts for a whole load of famous pop stars, and they are busy at the moment auctioning the information off to the highest bidder, so that they can they're trying to persuade the lawyers to pay for them. So this idea of double extortion is what they do is they go into your systems, they root around, they try and find damage. These people, they're criminal gangs, they pay people or they have employees whose job it is to do that, to recognize what is the good information. Then they get everything they want, they extract it out, and then they prepare your organization to be encrypted, and the last thing they do is flick the switch. And if you look at the Travelex, which was done over New Year, we look at SEPA. As soon as I heard SEPA was done on Christmas Eve, you kind of thought that is not by chance. They were done it on Christmas Eve because they know that SEPA would struggle to find people and struggle to respond over the Christmas period. So if you're going to be double extorted and they're going to go through all your data, then you have to think through, and you should have an inventory. And I put that crown there. There's that, I think it's a horrible expression called, what are your crown jewels? But do you understand your data? Do you understand the amount? Do you understand what you hold? So that if a hacker has access to every single piece of your information, what does that look like? And I just put that Sonny hack there. And that was the hack after they'd put the film about North Korea, and I think it's alleged that North Korean people attacked them. But basically, they attacked them and they they destroyed data, and they also leaked a whole load of data. And this was a leaked email conversation from emails. And this is Angelina Jolie. Now, I think most people would probably like to meet Angelina Jolie, but maybe Pascal knows a bit more about Angelina Jolie than we do, and it obviously suggests that he didn't want to meet her. But if you're dealing with a sort of high-profile, expensive Hollywood actress, you don't really want emails published that are derogatory about her. You know, if you're trying to negotiate with her, try and get her onto a film, you know, you don't really want those leak of it. So you have to be thinking, do you understand what data you hold? What are your crown jewels, and what is the most embarrassing bit of information that you hold? So as part of your risks, that's part of your risks. And do you have external audits to check what stage you have your cybersecurity? So get the kind of PwCs of this world in to have a look at your cybersecurity and see what you're doing. Do you have all your internal controls in place? And have you done a kind of threat assessment of who is likely to, do you have a cyber presence? Are you the type of organization people would like to attack, or are you not? Are you pretty nondescript organization? Not many people have heard of you. You're very niche in your organization. So the chances of you being cyber attacked are perhaps quite small. But have you done that threat analysis? So that's the first thing, thinking about your risks. We go next slide. Now, I said we don't do a technical response, but I think even if you're a non-technical person like me, you need to understand what is in place from your organization. So you can see up there in this cybersecurity framework. So in terms of things, does your organization have plans for dealing with the different sorts of cyber incidents they can have? They should have, have they got plans for denial of access attacks? They've got plans for ransomware attacks. Now, you could have three third parties to come in and help you, but really the third parties are going to be cyber experts, but they don't understand your systems, and they don't understand, they're going to have to make up how to recover systems. So have you got playbooks for these things? Have you got technical playbooks? Now, if you're doing your own audit, then you might necessarily not know whether that playbook's any good, because you don't know the technical content, but at least you can be asking them whether they have them. So do they have the technical playbooks for doing that? Do they have a cyber response team? Is that cyber response team, do they exercise some of the recovery? Now, one of the things that happens with ransomware, you have basically choice: either pay the ransom and hope to get your stuff back. And if you think about ransomware only works if people pay the ransom, but it only works if the people pay the ransom think they're going to get their data back. So it's in the interest of ransomware companies, if they want to continue this as a business, to be known for giving you back your data. So that's one way to get it. Other ways, what you have to do is Hedro, what the CIPA is doing at the moment, is you have to rebuild from scratch. Now, if you rebuild from scratch, you're often having to rebuild from your last backup tapes. So again, what is your recovery point objective? What is your, how much data you're going to lose? And does your people know how to rebuild from backup tapes? Have you ever practiced this? Do they know how to do it? So again, those are some simple questions you can ask and review, and you don't need any technical background in there. So you need to, one of the key bits is your technical response, and think through that. Let's move on to next one. Right, so your incident management crisis plans. Hopefully, because you're aware of this, your customers are BCT, customer plan B, you have some generic incident management plans. So everyone should, as a minimum, have some generic exit plans in place, which can be used as a framework to first manage your cyber incident. So, most people should have those. But I think you need to move on. I was speaking to an organization, they said, "Oh, do you have cyber playbooks?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "What are they for?" And they said, "Well," and then we eventually got to the bottom of it, they were technical cyber playbooks. That's all fine, that's good. But actually, do you have cyber playbooks for dealing with the reputational aspects of the incidents? Because if not, you need to. Because if you've had a data breach or a ransomware or some sort of other attack that's mass affecting your business, there is a lot of kind of concise information checklists you need to think through, and you don't really want to be making it up on the day. So I've got a ransomware screen there. One of the things you may want to think through in advance is, if you had a ransom attempt and your systems were locked, would you pay a ransom? Now, when I first sort of started thinking about this, I think perhaps even naively thought, well, of course you never pay a ransom, never give it into criminals. But then if you kind of work out to say, actually, if it's going to take your company 6 months to recover, by that time you recover your data, you'll have no customers left, and you'll have no business left. So, others would say, actually, if they ask for £2 million or $2 million, then actually, is that just not cost of doing business? Is that just what you have to pay because you've been unlucky enough or targeted or whatever, you've had a cyber attack? So that's unfortunate. It's just the cost of doing business. So you just pay up. So these are difficult conversations. You need to be thinking about in your playbooks. You need to think about, who do you need to report this to? Who's your key stakeholders? How are you going to communicate with, how are you going to commute with people? So there's quite a lot of preparation you can do in your playbooks to think about how you'd respond to specific incidents. So you need technical playbooks as well as incident crisis management playbooks. You've also hopefully got your business continuity plans, which you can use, because they ought to have, if you lose your operations, your business continuity plans help you recover your operations. So if you lose your IT or access to your IT, you can use your business continuity manual workarounds to make sure that you recover this and recover your operations. So what level of preparation have you got for incident management? Let's move on to the next slide. Communications. We always say when we're teaching business continuity, crisis management, communications are the most important thing you'll do. And for when you're responding, your customers, your stakeholders, the media, actually cyber response you're doing. Are you doing well? Are you doing badly? They don't. All they see is your communications.
Charlie, can we just interrupt for a second? We just lost you for a bit there.
Yeah.
Can you just a favor and just switch off your video feed for a minute?
All right. Yeah.
And just go back about 20 seconds,
Yeah.
if that's all right. Thank you.
All right. So your stakeholders and your customers and your staff don't see your communications. They don't see under your bonnet your cyber technical response. All they see is your communications, and so they're going to elicit from your communications how good your incident management is, and also how competent you are. And here on this page, there's some few good examples of things. So if we look at that Travelex planned maintenance, they were cyber attacked on 1st of January, which, is a good date for cyber attacking because everyone's on holiday and everyone's partying and everybody's not going to respond. They put up on their site for 9 days that sheet. Everybody knew they were having a cyber incident, but for 9 days, they were trying to convince us it was planned maintenance. To me, that just smacked of incompetence. It just made them look inept. It made them look, didn't know what they were doing. And, I think that the organization is no longer, or I think it was sold for £1. So, that probably was true, but do you need to tell everyone that you're doing it? So, if you've got if your website is part of your IT estate, then a cyber attack can take out your website. So, how can you switch to another website, which actually can at least put up a holding page to keep going until you can sort out an existing website? If you look down at Equifax there, that little one bottom left, is that was a sheet they put on top of their website to tell everybody that they'd had a cyber incident and to click through for information. They had 52 days to prepare, so they probably could get that done. If you've got to do something similar, is your website set up to do that, or is it not? And if you think through how would you use your website to communicate with a cyber incident. If we look at the top right, that is from the SEPA website. So if you wanted to report to SEPA because their incident took down their email, then you had to talk through Twitter or Facebook. Or you can see it obviously took out their telephone system, so there's a mobile number there. Quite often, organizations might use Twitter and Facebook to communicate with people if their systems and their website is down, and that's how they normally communicate. But it doesn't look terribly efficient. And have you thought through how you're going to inform your customers? You know, we do quite a lot of work with banks, and one of the big questions for them is to do a financial institution to say if they need to inform their customers, especially private banks, financial institutions, where actually have client managers, and their clients would expect to be told by their client manager. They wouldn't expect to receive a kind of dear sir email. So have you thought through how you're going to communicate with people? Is actually communicating via Twitter, which, you know, if you're not a Twitterati, then you might not actually even know quite how to do it. Is that the best way, or do you need to have a shadow email system in place so you can switch over and tell your customers, yeah, look, use this email system because our normal one has been cybered. And, you know, Equifax there tweeted fake link to their official pages. What happens is when you're having a cyber incident, everyone tries to scam the people who are affected. And Equifax, someone put up a fake Equifax site, and Equifax didn't realize, and Equifax put up their own site, and Equifax kept telling people to go to the fake site rather than their own site. So all these things play into, they make you look incompetent. And so, you know, you need to think through your communications, how you're going to deal with it. You've seen that Travelex recorded apology. Again, really poorly done, very stilted. 17 days after the incident, language is all wrong, say, this is the first time I've had time to talk to you. Well, 17 days, you know, we're your customers. If you really had no time in 17 days to do this, again, poorly executed, poorly done, made the situation worse. And, you know, do you know how to communicate with the ICO? Do you know what's required of them? Have you thought through how, when you would report an incident, you got 3 days, do you do it on day 3 or do you do it day 1? So there's a whole load of pieces of communications, and there is tons and tons of bad practice out there. So why wait until you get a cyber attack to exhibit your bad practice? A bit like SEPA has done. They've been not too bad, but they haven't been great, and they could, you know, there's a few obvious things they could have done. Then, you know, review it, get us to review it, and actually check whether you've done the right stuff. Next slide.
Shall we try your video as well, please?
Yeah, we'll try that as well. Yeah. Third parties. You can read this in parallel while I'm talking, but, you know, do you have the technical internal skills for dealing with a serious cyber incident? Do you have the forensic knowledge? Do you know how to get rid of malware and all the magic that you know, technical people do? If not, so you can audit, check what sort of level of skills you've got, and if not, have cyber insurance. Now, if you look at all the things you get from cyber insurance, including the cost of business shutdown, reputational management, even your insurance will pay the ransom. Why do you not have it? I was trying yesterday, trying to look at the cost of it, and I suspect in terms of, if your ransom payment is 2 or 3 million, I suspect the insurance is not that too expensive. And also, if you think about, for your organization, if someone in the middle of the night was to phone you up as a senior manager or the business continuity manager and say, look, we've had a cyber attack, do you really want to be going out to Google and trying to find a company that will come in and support you? no, you don't want to. And if it's a widespread attack, you might not find anyone because they're all tied up with insurance companies and they're all going to their clients. So, there's your forensic response, your cyber insurance. There's also the whole threat intelligence piece, so that if you've had a malware and you've got threat intelligence, then they should be able to tell you actually who the people are. Is it worth paying the ransom to those people, because actually they have a reputation and then doubling the payment unless you pay, and they got opinion not for doing it. Threat intelligence, do they look at the dark web and see if your information's on the dark web, so they can, and there's things you can do here to make sure the mitigate. I don't think they're all that expensive, but I think for a minimum, if you don't have cyber insurance, then I really do think you ought to have a look at it. So have a look at what third parties you have there. And next slide. And your typical training and exercising. So that course, the CBSI Certified Management Preparing for Cyber Incidents, run by BCT. I teach on it. So, it's a 2-day course. It covers all this stuff, and it gives you a really good background designed for non-technical people on all the sort of things you should be doing. One of the exercises is that exercise with that young boy there, and what these teams mean. And I'm always surprised. That's one of the exercises we do at the beginning of the course, and I am actually always surprised how little people know. And to me, those things I thought were kind of common knowledge kind of things, and actually on the course some people struggle with it. So for your senior managers, do your senior managers have a security? They need to know what's the difference between a targeted and untargeted. What is ransomware? What's denial of access attack? What's the questions they're going to be asked of them? What decisions are they going to make? Now, I know senior managers are busy, but to do a little bit of training and a half a day, 2-3 hours cyber exercise, I suspect the difference it will make in terms of their ability to manage and respond will be huge. All the things cost, but they don't need to cost tons. And if you think about it, some of the expenses associated with this, you need to get your senior managers to make time for this, because in the end, it's the CEO and the CIO who get sacked over this. All the big companies who've been attacked, successful cyber attack, and then usually lose those 2 jobs. So it's in their interest, if they put us on the too difficult pile, you need to find ways of making sure that actually, look, give me the budget, give me 3 hours, and I will give you some cyber incident training or an exercise. Or we quite often do a kind of like combination of 2, a little bit of cyber management landscape, double extortion, what different sorts of attacks, what the sort of issues are, and then we run through a nice, gentle business continuity exercise. And it's getting beyond understanding the basics is not very complicated, but you don't, like all good stuff in business continuity, you don't want to be hit on the day. You really want to have a thought about it, practice it, and then you can have the time to go and think about, what don't I know? Are we going to be prosecuted for paying a ransom? Well, I don't know. We can go away and find out about it. So some of these simple things, like all good business continuity, you can do, spend the time now to stop the time easy later, or save time and very likely money. So those are the sort of 6 elements that we could do, and I'll run through that pretty briefly. So what can you be doing now? So if we go to the next slide. I know this is a little bit of a sales pitch, but that's a joy coming on a webinar. So what are the next steps? A cyber gap analysis. We as BCT or business continuity planning would love to do something. So what we do is we've got a set of questions, and we would go through that, and we would ask the questions relevant people in your organization, and we'd write up into a nice report, knowing fine well that for a lot of you, you could probably do the same thing and you could ask the same questions, but sometimes the outsider is believed much more than the insider. So that is so come to us for gap analysis. Oh, do a gap analysis yourselves. You've got the you've got the basic stuff there. Do it yourself. Come on the courses. So there's your preparing for cyber incidents. It's a good basic course. There's a good background to it. We've had all sorts of people there, and online you can do it. You can do it for your place of work or your home or whatever. Or if you're abroad, you can do it from there as well. So that's good. And cyber exercises, we do cyber exercises, but there's lots of other people out there for cyber exercises. The only thing I was saying about anything cyber, especially cyber exercises, is I'm sure if you've ever paid for a wedding or just know the cost of paying for a wedding, that if you put wedding in front of photographer, the photographer will charge 3 times, and if you put work do photographer. So it's a little bit out there with cyber. So you say around, if someone says we'll charge you £10 for £10,000 for an exercise, you put cyber exercise, especially some of the large companies will then try and charge you £30,000 because it says cyber. And you can see a little bit of the landscape is you don't need, especially for exercise, especially with senior managers, you don't need the world expert, which some of these companies do, at cyber response and all the technical wizardry. You don't need that, because in actual fact, a lot of the exercise is about media management, it's about reputational management, it's recovery, it's about decision making. The technical bit, if you've got technical experts, yeah, go to those technical people who can do that, but don't get exercise off people who are doing technical stuff. Just don't pay too much for it. Shop around, because some of the prices I've heard, and people just just quite happily just pay it, thinking that's the price, and I'm going, Anyway, that's enough of my rant about cost of cyber exercises done by some. So that is what I've got for you. Is there any questions or thoughts or anything else you would like to hear about or comment on?